Tune in weekly and listen to the Collateral Damage podcast, where Michael Wilson and Maureen Cavanaugh host a variety of special guests to discuss topics and available services that will help you learn about the impact that substance use has on our lives, our families, and on our communities nationwide. Episodes and listening information can be found at www.cdpodcast.com. You can also search for Collateral Damage Podcast on your favorite listening platforms or watch previous and future episodes on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and share. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Collateral Damage. This is Mike Wilson with my co-host Maureen Cavanaugh, and today we have a special guest, Coach Mike Ferullo, with the Boston Bulldogs Running Club. And,
one of my all-time favorite people. True thing.
And I know that I want to learn about this. I want to hear about this. I think wellness and recovery, be it physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, I think it's all critical. And I know that this was born from your own personal experience, Coach. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. And so I want to give you a chance to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how this organization came to be. And
yep.
Maybe you could start with that. Like, why Boston Bulldogs?
Well, I love Bulldogs. I've had them for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Our current Bulldog is Gus, our mascot. So it's an interesting story. I started the Bulldogs as maybe about 12 years ago. I decided that I wanted to try to bring wellness, exercise into the clinical community. Being in recovery for many, many years and been a runner for as many years, and have found a lot of refuge and help, and in being a runner and being in the running community. I sort of come up with a term. I found my kind-hearted warrior. So that's what we talk about in the Bulldogs, is to participate in the Bulldogs in the community and find that kind-hearted warrior that's inside of all of us. We're not who we think we are. We have unlimited potential as human beings, but we get caught up in these narratives, and they're kind of fixed, and we believe them, and we get stuck. So anyway, using running is kind of that's Gus actually.
Is that the Bulldog?
So anyway, getting back to starting the Bulldogs, I would go to Pine Street every Saturday as a volunteer to Shattuck, and then at Pine Street, starting to encourage the guys to exercise and talk about wellness and my principles. With the first day I was there, I said, we got to come up with a logo. And there was a fellow there that was very quiet. He said, well, I'm an artist. I can draw a bulldog. And he drew the Bulldogs, and we came up. I said, I want to call it the Bulldogs. That's about as active.
Sounds like Gus wants to be on the show.
I want something to eat. That's years. Yeah. But anyway, so that's how we came up with the name, and the logo was fantastic. I hope I gave you a T-shirt, Maureen.
Yes, you did. I wear it all the time. I love my T-shirt.
Yeah. So again, the history of it was I started as a volunteer. I would go in there, and then after about 8 or 9 years, I wanted to expand it and reach a larger group, and started the Bulldogs, and didn't know what I was getting myself into. I just really wanted to run with people in recovery and talk to the clinical community about the importance of exercise. And, sometimes it's more of an afterthought in the clinical community, and people don't see the importance of exercise. So I decided that I wanted to expand it, and I never really was involved as a clinician. I didn't know much about nonprofits. And so we started this nonprofit, and I started running with a few people, and here we are now. We have 4 chapters, and we're starting another one in Natick.
Wow.
We have one in Plymouth, Scituate, Brighton, Chicago, Quincy, and so now we have around 200 members.
I love how
And
you just popped in that Chicago one.
yeah, Chicago one's
another
big.
state. You've got another
Yeah.
state. Okay, all
And
right.
I didn't know whether I could, whether people would be in other states would be open to calling it the Boston Bulldogs. So we call it Running with the Bulldogs.
Okay.
So we got that chapter there, and we've just it just has grown and continues to grow, and this idea of helping people see their potential through community and through wellness.
Well, can I ask you a question? Because I'm a person in recovery, and I can honestly say that each time I attempted sobriety, each time I attempted to get well, I didn't exactly come into the program as a picture of health. I came in, in a lot of pain and probably out of shape and probably crushing way too many Newports in a day. And how exactly, as a person in recovery, do I kind of ease my way into this type of running club? Because I'm immediately intimidated as somebody who doesn't work out regularly early in recovery. So how does that work?
So what's really, really important is when someone reaches out and they're interested in the Bulldogs, is for me and the leadership team, someone in the leadership team, to make immediate contact, to connect with that person, because they are intimidated, and they, a lot of them have social issues, especially in early recovery. It's hard for them to sort of show up and be part of a group, a sober group. That connection initially is important, and then meeting with them that first day. And in social work, we learn to accept clients or individuals where they're at. So we accept people where they're at. We say there's no problem. You're still smoking. It's not a problem. Just start off where you're at. We have a beginner's program, and it basically works for everyone. Somebody can continue to smoke and still engage in the program. When they first join, we encourage them to be able to. We have a run-walk program. So if you were out of shape and you were smoking, we have a 1.5-mile loop down in Cheston Hill near BC, and we have someone walk run. So somebody would walk a minute, run a minute, walk 2 minutes, and then the idea is to be consistent and show up. And if they continue to do that, and we encourage them to run a minimum of 3 days a week, follow this program that we lay out for them. Before you know it, they're running a mile without stopping. And we encourage them to run really slow at a conversational pace. So once they start to experience, this idea that, geez, I can run a mile. I couldn't even walk a mile. And I can run a 1/2 mile. And then sooner or later they're running a 5K, which is, 3.1 miles. And then the miracle happens.
So do they get different T-shirts? There's the walking bulldog,
the
jogging bulldog.
I think it's important to, what I really want to do is sort of talk about the heart of the Bulldogs, and it's based on community. And I always say, through community we heal and recover, through isolation we suffer. So the community and the connection and the support, the compassion, the kindness that we demonstrate towards ourselves and others is the first step. The 3 principles that I talk a lot about and I encourage people to participate in is, the first one is very, very important. It's called self-leadership. That's the first principle. And that means holding yourself accountable, taking full responsibility for your internal, your external life, for everything that's going around you, and to do what you have to do, not what you always want to do. Be accountable to what's going on, show up, put the work in, and through that principle in embracing the self-leadership, one begins to see their unlimited potential, because they're realizing that, and bottom line is, nobody can fix us.
Right.
We have to step up to the plate, even though there's a feeling of insecurity, self-doubt, whatever it is, failures in the past. We have to step up, and we have to go to those places and take that risk and put the effort into showing up. And once they do that, no matter how terrified they are, no matter how difficult it is, we have to in the therapeutic world, a famous analyst calls the holding environment.
Mhm.
You know, it's the good enough parenting. We create a holding environment for the person in early recovery so they feel safe, they feel supported, they're encouraged, and they start to realize once they become responsible and disciplined and engage in the program, they start to realize, wow, I can actually run a 5K. So we have what's called the second principle is transparency.
Mhm.
And we encourage transparency, which is being able to assume full responsibility for what's coming up, what's arising in you, what's happening in you, what's going on in your life, being honest with yourself in a non-judgmental way. I teach mindfulness, which is that just being aware of what's coming up, because we know we can't control everything that's coming up in our thoughts. And
Mhm.
through this acceptance, we can have a better relationship with whatever it is that's coming up. But we need to be honest. If
Mhm.
we're feeling fear, it's fear. Feeling so we encourage transparency and welcoming it, even though it might be difficult to experience whatever it is that's going on, and in our relationships, in our life too, and to really say, you know, this is important for me to be myself, to be transparent, when as long as it's not going to harm you.
Right.
Transparency is really key, and besides teaching the running and encouraging people to run, I teach mindfulness. We encourage the runners to, you know, make some time every day to meditate. It's very, very important. I go on meditation retreats for 5 to 8 days a week in silence. And believe me, I never thought I could sit for 5 minutes.
Did you just say 5 to 8 days in a
Yeah.
row of
But
silence?
that's after, you know, 20 years of doing this. You know, my history is very typical. You know, I was not only a drug addict, I had ADHD, I had trauma, I had anxiety, you name it. I was in jail, mental hospitals, bang, bang, bang. And I started running, and running just really helped me in my early recovery in many ways. And it's helping the same individuals that are really engaging in running, engaging in the community in the same exact way. And this has been my vision. It basically helps you with your whatever you're struggling with, your mood, your emotions. You
Mhm.
go out for a run, you feel better. Or, you know, any type of movement or exercise. It helps with cravings.
Mhm.
It helps you start to feel better about yourself. See, drug addicts, as we know, are used to immediate gratification. So if they show up and they go for that little run and they get that immediate runner's high. And
Mhm.
not only that, they get a psychological high. Look what I just did. They start to feel better about themselves. And then they start to develop an identity around, like, this has happened to me. I'm a runner. I'm
Mhm.
not a criminal. I'm not a drug addict.
Right.
Um, you know, I started to feel like I was somebody, you know, I started to feel positive, and it helped me with my self-esteem. And then I joined a running club, and one thing led to another. And that really played a big role in, I'm an eighth grade dropout. I ended up spending 8 years in college, and it was really, really difficult. And there's
Mhm.
running helped me in that area too. So basically, people engaging in the principle of self-leadership, transparency, and, as Maureen knows, the importance of giving back.
Mhm.
When the Bulldogs engage in those three principles and work on my three areas of development, which is mental, physical, and ethical development.
Mhm.
Because when you do good, you feel good. You
Right.
know, I was a drug addict, but I was a street guy. I had to learn not only to stop getting high, I had to learn to not lie, cheat, steal, be full of greed. So I encourage, and I don't think this is talked enough, the importance of approaching where you're at ethically and developing values that are really related to the core of who you are,
Mhm.
which is a good person. But in order to feel like a good person, you have to act like a good person.
Absolutely. Well, I have to assume that, a lot of these people who have joined the Boston Bulldogs Running Club or the running club, just in wherever they're doing it, that, part of their journey through is to help the next person,
It's very
to assist in lifting people up and help them push through those plateaus of, I can't, I never have been able to, this is too hard, it's not happening fast enough, like those things where, part of recovery is giving back, as we all know, you can't keep it if you don't give it away. So, I know that a part of this is, it must be that some of these folks that have been with you for a while, they're stepping in to assist and bringing up that newcomer, that new runner.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because I get really excited about, what the Bulldogs about. It's really, as I'm speaking, you can understand it's a lot more than just running.
Mm-hmm.
So we have what's called the Full Circle program, and it's the heart of the program. Someone comes in, they join the club. We make that connection with them. We're there for them. We're meeting them. We're talking to them, and they sign up. Once they sign up for Full Circle that means they're going to be training for a 5K.
Okay.
And what they do on their end is they make a contract that they're going to stay sober for that period of time. They're going to show up 80% of the time. They're going to engage in their running program. They're going to connect with their wellness sponsor and their coach.
Wow.
And we give them running gear. We give them T-passes. We give them whatever they need. Once they step up and they start to engage in that first principle of self-leadership, and you can see that they're hungry and motivated, we're there 100%. And the more we're there, the more they step up for themselves, and the more we're there for them. It's like magic. So once they engage in the program, they come down to the reservoir. We have our own little 5K. All the Bulldogs show up, 30 or 40 of them. They'll have pacers that will run with them. And once they cross that finish line, all the Bulldogs are there. They get a recognition award. They get Bulldog gear. Now they can go on to our Full Circle 2, which is a 10K, same process, commitment to sobriety, commitment to all the things I mentioned. Once they complete that, now they can enroll in our Bulldog Leadership Program. Mm-hmm. This is the heart of the program. It's peer-to-peer, it's helping one another. It's the empowerment that we can find when we help ourselves and we help one another. Mm-hmm. Because my vision is, I'm 71, I don't know how long, there's a point where I got to slow down a little bit, but my vision is the Bulldogs that are members are going to be running the Bulldogs. Mm-hmm. And so once they're eligible to apply to the leadership program, then they have a specific responsibility, and if they need it, they get a stipend every month. Mm-hmm. We have the Full Circle leader that reaches and connects with all the chapters, mm-hmm. That provides orientation and connects with the new person. We have a running coordinator who gets paid he's at a different, it depends on, like, we have somebody in Brighton, somebody mm-hmm. in Quincy, somebody in Chicago. They're accountable for being there. They're accountable to their job. So they're giving back. They're part of this organization. They're feeling good about themselves, and they're getting financial support. We have a Bulldog that's an assistant operational manager. It's somebody that's helping me, with all the administrative stuff. Mm-hmm. And we have an outreach coordinator, and we also have a giving back program. This is another really important, exciting thing that I started about 6 months ago. Each month we go to a different location. For the last couple of months, we're going down to the engagement center down Mass Ave, and we've been giving out backpacks, Narcan, food, coffee, and the outreach volunteer coordinates that. We make sure we get all this stuff. We go to Brockton to a homeless shelter there. We go right on the streets. We give out the clothes, and this is the members of the Bulldogs are doing this, and the individuals that are in our leadership program are facilitating these programs. We have a junior Bulldogs program. We go to residential programs. We go to the YMCA, and we're working with kids, trying to create exercise, promote wellness, and as an alternative, because we're working with kids that are at risk. Mm-hmm. These kids have trauma, so we're trying to get them to use exercise in communities as an alternative to using drugs when they're teenagers.
Wow. So there's a huge organizational structure here. I mean, this isn't just
There
a
is.
running club,
Yeah.
which some people might think by the name. This is actually a passion and organization, a nonprofit, correct?
It's
Which means that
nonprofit.
people can contribute, they can make donations and support your efforts, and
Oh
that
yeah. Yep.
each bulldog that enters and becomes a part of this is a part of the organization and can
Yep.
play a role in giving back to the community, helping the next generation, pulling up new bulldogs, and as you just mentioned before, some of them are going to take over this organization at some point and bring it someplace else. Now, this transition into other states, I mean, is that something that was that just kind of like a fluke? Do you know someone out there, or was this
Yeah.
intentional, like you're trying to get this to other states?
Sometimes, as Maureen knows, when something works, it almost goes too fast. Um, it entails more responsibility, more work. And so what happened was we were in this, I was featured in Runner's World magazine, which was crazy for me because when I first got sober, being a drug addict in high school, I never read anything in my life except when I was in jail. I read a little bit.
Yeah.
But when I got sober, I was, when we know when we get sober, wherever like I was 24, but developmentally I was 15, 16. I still wanted to have an identity. No longer was I going to be a drug addict. That wasn't my identity. I needed a new identifier. Now I'm a runner. I used to carry the Runner's World magazine. I didn't read it, but I would carry it around, But then I started reading it. So here we go. 40 years later, I'm featured on that magazine. It's just the power of, what can happen if you just put effort and just stick with it. I always tell people in recovery, we're in this for the long run, man. Whatever's going on in the moment, we know it's going to pass. Just keep going and you'll find sometimes when people start to experience their potential, it scares them, because there's a certain comfort and this idea of giving up, whether it's depression or addiction. It's kind of like, I don't have to do much because I'm a schmuck, I don't have anything to offer. I don't have any, they have to get out of that and realize, you have to work, but you can do the work. And yes, the work is uncomfortable. So basically, I was getting calls and emails after that article, and I just met with the board and I met with my team, and we just said we're not ready to start chapters in other states, until we can put a model together and get an organization where I have some paid staff and all that. However, this woman from Chicago, who was quite successful at an early age, she's a triathlete. She just wanted to start helping people, and she flew down and she met with me, and I told her I wasn't interested. She said, just meet with me. She flew down to Boston and she ran with us, and I told her what it really entails. People who want to do good things, you have to really open their eyes to what they really, what the commitment is.
People don't understand how much work this is.
That's right.
There's
a lot of work. You just don't run. You just don't show up and run. And then after 6 months, I want to go on and do something else. People, once it works, people are going to. Anyway, she was the real deal. She had amazing energy. She's brilliant. She has a lot of resources politically and in the community, the business world, the running world. And within 4 weeks, she has about 15 bulldogs running there right now. And I'm going down there to participate in their first full circle one race. We're going to give out the awards, and I'm taking the full circle coordinator, Megan, with me, who spoke at the race. Again, empowering the bulldogs and having them be part of this. We're going to go down there and run with them and give the 2 or 3 bulldogs that are doing the full circle their awards. Last night we had 2 people in Quincy. Quincy just started about 6 weeks ago, and Megan, who's the coordinator of Full Circle and that chapter, is very strong in the AA community, and she sponsors a lot of women. So first night there was about 10 women that showed up, and it's mostly women, but it's doing an unbelievable job. But what's amazing is we had 2 or 3 solid bulldogs that are in our leadership show up, who don't run in that chapter, who run in different chapters, to pace and run with the bulldogs in Quincy last night. It's on our Facebook. that just brings a smile to my face.
That's great. Sounds like you're able to inspire people through this. I mean, as you said, wellness and recovery. I mean, you have to have something to buy into, some belief that things are going to get better, that you can heal, that you can get well, and leading through example. As you said, I mean, what'd you say? You're 71?
Yeah.
Right. So if I saw a 71-year-old guy that was running around and all motivated and ambitious like you are, and here I am just being a lump complaining about my life, I mean, you're definitely leading by example and inspiring me outside of myself,
Yeah.
and I think that I wish this was around when I was trying to get sober, because it would have been really nice. I did go to the gym, and I do like that activity. I do like the as you said, getting the chemicals to fire off and getting that, the runner's high. We get a lifter's high too.
Yep.
Which is where the world starts to melt away, and you get the music in your headphones, and it's just you and whatever it is that you're doing. And whether that's in a gym, on a treadmill, out in that that 1 mile where you guys are running, wherever it is, it's just you and you. And
Yeah, one of the amazing things that can happen, I think it could happen, is trying to get Maureen to come down and walk. So I'm going to throw that in.
I really do want to do this.
I think if you walk, run, one of the amazing things that happens when you run is, most addicts in recovery, they're pretty transparent in general, but when you're running, there's a tendency to be very honest and open and authentic, because you're not making that eye contact. You're running, you're moving, and really, people like join and they run a mile and I go, wow, I had fun. I really got to know people. I shared things I normally don't share. So that just is a plus, and that definitely is what happens. And I think it happens with our walkers too.
So you are talking while they're running, right?
Well, what we try to do is we see, what I'm promoting is what I call LSD running. It's not the kind of LSD you had when you were a kid. what we want to do is get to a long, slow distance. In order to get up to like 5, 6, 8 miles, that's when the physical and the mental benefits kick in.
Okay.
I call it the recovery pace and the recovery distance. What happens is, you have to be able to run and talk. If you're running too fast, you can't have a conversation. It's not really good training to do that. You save that for the races. So what we all try to do is we try to run at a conversational pace, because a big part of this is social. We are social creatures. We need to feel loved. We need to love. Bottom line. When we feel supported and loved, and we are getting a lot of compassion and kindness, which is the core values of the Bulldogs, and the core values of what I practice, which is refuge recovery. That aspect of Buddhist recovery, it's key, because everybody is so frightened and stressed out today. We're living in a time today where people are addicted to attention. They're addicted to distraction. And this idea of exercising and slowing down and meditating is what everybody needs. We have right now an epidemic of loneliness, and we have an epidemic of anxiety, clinical anxiety. I meet more teenagers now that are telling me that they're clinically anxious. And that's where the drugs come in. We know that 80%, I think, people who end up in our office with substance abuse problems have another diagnosis.
I mean, do you subscribe to the dislocation theory? Of the disconnected community and society, and that generationally we're getting further and further away from the idea of tribes and connectedness.
Yep.
And that these generations are growing up more technologically connected, but not in a human way, not in a person.
Michael, you hit the nail on the head, man.
Yeah.
This is what's going on, and it's getting worse. This is why the Bulldogs, in part, are so successful. The church, the family, it's not as strong as it used to be. And people even talk about finding this tribe, this community, and go into a yoga class, because they're not getting it. So they're looking for it. We're all hungry for that tribe mentality. I'm on the board of John Rady. He co-wrote driven to distraction about ADHD, and he's written all kinds of books on. He's from Harvard. He teaches there about the importance of exercise with mental health, trauma, autism, old age, and everything. And he's just written a book about the tribe and the community, the importance of it. That's why AA, I went to an AA, one of my Bulldogs had 3 years, got his medallion last night. And I'm not an AA person, but I went there. It was in Dorchester at a church. And there must have been about 150 people there. It's
Wow.
one of the biggest. And I was sitting in there and I'm going, this is working because of the size of this community is so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the recovery culture, the fellowship, the connection,
fellowship,
the tribe. Yeah.
I think, it's just key. It's key for us to feel connected.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's good. I mean, you're creating a path that you have to have various ways. Like you said, people look into yoga, people look to their family, people look to running, people look to all these different places to go get tribed up, go get connected.
Yeah.
And I love how you open this up to the families too. So it's not just for people in recovery.
Wow.
It can be somebody that's a family member who's in recovery, because we recover too. We just in a different way.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, Maureen, because I feel really strongly about this. I started this up for people who are impacted also in the clinical community, and the community at large, anyone who wants to promote my vision of wellness and recovery. I am trying to get the clinical community to understand the importance of my principles of self-leadership and of people empowering themselves through effort, through exercise. But the other important thing is I don't like labels very much. I think there's something value in saying, go into a meeting and saying I'm an alcoholic, and remembering that, I have this disease or whatever you call it. But on the other hand, and we don't encourage people, we don't have volunteers, we don't encourage people in the Bulldogs, in the tribe, Michael, to go around the room and say, I'm an alcoholic, I'm somebody who's impacted. We're all what I call, because I'm Italian, I love this term, Italian, we're all average meatballs. Okay, we're all human beings. We're all going through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm concerned about these groups, separating up. Too much of a separation. We got the people in recovery over here. We got the clinical community over here. I got clinicians who don't want to join the club because they're afraid it's a conflict of interest. Listen, we've got to be aware of these separation and how it's costly. So we want to identify as human beings. So that we have a strong group of men, women, young adults who've been impacted. Either they lost a loved one, or they have a sibling or a husband or a family member who's been impacted by addiction. I have 3 steps to their recovery, but basically I encourage them to follow my principles and my 3 areas of development. We know the addiction that they experience and the acute anxiety they experience, and nobody knows it more than Maureen. My 3 little steps, and they also participate in the Full Circle program, because they need to be in recovery. They need to show up, and they need to show up, because sometimes somebody's impacted is there with you, but in their mind, they're with the person that they're worried about. They're not really with you.
Very distracted.
They're distracted. Yeah, they can't help it. So the first step, I'll just say real quickly, is first you have to get together with yourself, with other people, and acknowledge, and this sounds like common sense, but it's important to really embrace the idea that I am being affected by my loved one's addiction. I am being affected. I have a problem. That's the key. Same as for us in recovery, we have to acknowledge that we have a problem, right? Same thing. I have a problem, and then we have to. The step 2 is to be able to acknowledge how you're being affected mentally, physically, interpersonally, spiritually. I encourage them to make the list. I can't sleep. My marriage is falling apart. I'm making irrational decisions. I'm having panic attacks. It's daunting. It's really, really tough. Once they come to terms with that and they start focusing on how they're being impacted and they acknowledge it and they feel it, then they're starting to put the focus on themselves. It's hard to do that. Putting the focus, and they go, oh my gosh, I'm not eating, or I'm eating too much, or I'm sleeping too much. And for that second, right, Maureen, for that minute, they're dealing with themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
The mind is there.
And
identifying things they can change, right?
Right. And you can't really be strong enough to be there for somebody else if you don't take care of yourself.
And so it's an illusion to feel like you want to stay connected. And Maureen was written about, we need to stay connected, but without hurting ourselves or hurting the addict.
Right.
I had a patient who, family member was given her son $100 a day, so he would go out and cop and shoot the drugs in the house, and so she was afraid to go to jail. Jail is what saved my life, believe it or not. Being in jail. But anyway, again, it's almost becomes unconsciously convenient to focus in on somebody else. That codependency thing, like, oh, I don't have to deal with me.
That's true.
That's very true. Deal with me. And I think it's really related to, I love this person, I'm afraid this person's going to die, but also this unconscious secondary gain is, I don't have to deal with me.
Yeah.
And if you don't deal with you can't, like Maureen said, you can't deal. So, but again, this is such a difficult and courageous thing for someone to do, this step 2. They need community, whether it's Maureen in her office, whether it's the Bulldogs, doesn't matter. They need help, and they'd rather help than get help. That's another syndrome. Yeah,
it really is.
It's very similar to, like, I'd rather do drugs than ask for help.
Right.
Same thing. Step 3 is the hardest one. It's not the hardest one, but it's the most important. Map out what you're gonna do. What is your recovery toolbox gonna look like? Oh, I'm going to get into counseling. I'm going to meet with, embrace principle 1, take full responsibility for that list. Even if you go back and you instead of spending 3 hours looking, thinking about or doing certain things for that loved one, maybe now you're just spending an hour because you've done these things to help yourself. Right. Again, none of this is going to happen without community.
You need that support. You need to see other people doing the same thing. You need to see success stories.
Can't do it alone. I don't believe you can. I believe the fear of connection is what keeps people apart. We get addicted to isolation.
Yeah.
I think how intense I am. I'm trying to relax and be lighting up in my old age.
It's never going to happen. Never going to happen. I think that this is so important because people go through recovery in lots of different ways, right? Not one thing is, like you said, you're not an AA guy, you're more of a refuge recovery guy. And, there's some people come to me and tell me, Bill, I don't want to go to a meeting. Okay, don't go to a meeting. Go run with the Bulldogs or go do some recovery yoga. And I don't know, you may wind up, you build that community there, and you may wind up going to a meeting eventually or doing something else. But whatever opens that door, whatever people are comfortable with, I think in connecting with other people that are in a similar situation. I think.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Maureen, because this goes back to my principle 1. What I do is I will tell them, lay out what's available. Like, you're available, Alan. I'll say, here's what's available. I want you to look at this list. If you have anything to add, because I believe deep down inside people know what they have to do. And I'll say, come back next week and tell me what your recovery toolbox is going to look like. I don't tell them. I say, you pick. You take responsibility. Yeah. You tell me. I can say, this is what really helped me. This is what I think could help you. But basically, people are not going to do what they don't want to do.
Right.
But if you want to get sober, or if you want to you want to overcome your issues around suffering with somebody's illness, you have to embrace that first principle of self-leadership. So once you get that toolbox going, they go, I went to an Al-Anon meeting, that doesn't work, but this works, that works. I don't know what's going to work, and we really don't. I get concerned about the recovery community, clinic community that is too eager to tell people what to do and what works and what doesn't work. They say, well, just, it's like for me saying, well, the only thing that's going to work is the Boston Bulldogs. That's absurd. And that's dangerous.
Right.
And I think a lot of people in recovery, once they find that whatever they're doing works, then they start to believe it's the only thing that's going to help people. And that's basically not their fault. It's kind of ignorance.
Right. No, but we in recovery, we need many options, right? I mean, I didn't stop the first time I tried something. I tried something, I didn't like it. I came back, tried something else. And, eventually, as you said, you got to find what works for you. But having those options wouldn't exist if it wasn't for people like you out there creating these things, giving people who wouldn't otherwise be able to sit through a meeting can go out and get physical, or somebody that hasn't identified with anyone else in any of these other recovery options, but can come and try this. And so, I think it's great to have options. And I agree with you.
We need a lot of things, just like nutrition. We can't just eat red meat. I mean, we need a lot of tools. We need a lot of things to do.
Right.
But I have ADHD is, we know it's rampant with addicts. Some of my bulldogs, a couple of them, they go to meetings. They're into the 12 steps, but they'll go for like a 3-4 mile run before they go to meeting because they can listen a little better. They're not getting up and they can settle down a little bit. I actually did that last night before I went to the meeting because I still have trouble sitting through long things. But I'm doing pretty good on this one.
Yeah, you're doing great. Well, let me ask you a question. So there's so you do the annual Run for Recovery. That's in May, right? So there's another one of those coming
May
up.
17th, and we have a tribute for people who have lost their lives to addiction. We have speakers. I think Maureen engaged in that. We have the recovery and the clinical community engaging in the run and the tribute. Maureen,
And this is the one that's coming up October 19th?
No, it's May. No, I'm so sorry, Michael.
Okay.
That's May 19th, but I mean, that's October 19th. But the Boston Bulldogs Run for Recovery, I believe it's May 17th. We just got a permit, and that's at Franklin Park.
So much. It's so much fun. So much fun.
Yeah, like as they say in Boston, it's Franklin Park.
Franklin Park.
And there's lots of Bulldogs attend.
Yeah.
As well.
What's the distance on that one? What's that run?
That's a historic cross-country 5K course. It's in the runs through the woods.
Okay. And then for those that are looking for a nice fall run, you have the 5K in Milton. This is
Mike's 5K to crush substance abuse. You can go on my website, and we'd love to have you there. And
and that's
people who want
BostonBulldogsRunning.com, right? BostonBulldogsRunning.com.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I listen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make sure. Boston Bulldogs Running. Yeah, that's it.
Gotcha.
BostonBulldogsRunning.com. That's our website. It's a terrific website. One of our Bulldogs, I never even, this is unbelievable. I shouldn't say this. You might want to edit this one. Prior to the Bulldogs 4 years ago, I never even looked at a website.
Yeah.
I was either seeing patients or running.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a great tool to have, and it's as I said, it's good that you got some people there that can help you put it together.
Oh yeah.
So the website gives access to all of those upcoming events, future events, and then also they can follow you guys on Facebook, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Correct?
And we, I also just want to say one more program I started. I'm a visionary, and my group is slowing me down. I've been told I cannot come up with any more ideas or things, but this one we just created a scholarship program, and Maureen would like this because she's involved in this also with her organization, I think, or she knows the organization. Anybody who's in our leadership program that has demonstrates a willingness to engage in sobriety. I always say sobriety is one pillar, recovery is the next. Engage in sobriety and recovery. If they're in our leadership program and they relapse, we will provide stipend, money for them to get back on their feet in terms of treatment. We have somebody helping somebody get back into a sober house if that's what they need. But they have to be at that full circle pro level. And I just want to say one more really important thing. And this, when you're engaged in a leadership program, or if you've completed Full Circle 1, which is a 5K, Full Circle 2, which is a 10K, if you relapse, this is key. You have to, if you want to get back in the leadership program, you have to start from the beginning. You have to give up your job. You have to go into the group and say, because transparency, you can't live a lie. I relapsed. I'm starting all over. And I've had 3 or 4 Bulldogs that have relapsed, and now they're even stronger in their recovery because they went through that process. It's like the 24-hour chip. First of all, I know when somebody's, I can tell, but usually, that's very, very important, is for people to be able to step up and say, I'm a human being. I failed. I relapsed. Not failed, but I relapsed. So they start from the beginning again.
That's
You
great.
like that, Michael?
I do. I like that. I like that they have an option to come back through. It's good stuff.
Oh, yeah. But they can't be in the program and relapse, and, they have to start all over again.
Good. Should.
Old school.
Yeah. Take you back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, this has been
Excellent.
great. This has been awesome, Mike. Thanks so much.
I know Maureen knew so much about you, but I didn't. And
Yeah.
whenever we have a guest on, it's always a great opportunity for me to learn about tools and resources in our area. So I hope that our listeners were able to get as much information as I was out of this. And
I know some amazing people.
Yeah, I'll tell you something, Michael. It was a real pleasure to meet you. You're doing some good work, and Maureen, you're amazing, man. I'm just so happy for you, and the people you're helping, the families you're helping. It's awesome. Keep up the good work, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Coach.
Ciao.
Thanks so much. See you soon.
All right.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.
Right. I would like to thank all of our listeners for joining us today on this episode of Collateral Damage. As always, if you'd like to find out all of the different ways that you can listen to and subscribe to our podcast, you can visit our website, which is www.cdpodcast.com. There are many different ways to listen, download, and subscribe, so we encourage you to choose the one that is most appropriate for you. And as always, we would encourage our listeners to get informed and stay connected. Thank you for joining us.